All right, this is Roger. I got Andy on the phone. Andy is a bacterial engineer. He's got a serious project going on where they're testing the food supply, and you're looking for pathogens in these cold rooms. Is that right, Andy?
That's correct. Cold rooms are the core of human food chains. We produce the food, we keep it in cold storage to extend the shelf life, and then frozen is a completely new technology which we find primarily Listeria can survive in cold environments, which is pathogenic to humans. Over.
Oh, interesting. Because you know that I'm doing a lot of research on the enzymes related to disease, and especially bacterial problems in the gut, and the enzymes are the producers of the end products. If you don't have the enzymes, you don't get the end product, whatever that end product might be. So you have to have the enzymes, but in order to get the enzymes, you have to have the bacteria. So you're saying this Listeria bacteria can survive these cold temperatures?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, we have ice cream producing clients that continuously find Listeria even in their aseptic environments. But I believe it's because they're doing what we call grab sampling. They don't really see the bacterial colonies. But using ultraviolet light and thermal infrared cameras, we can detect gross colonies. And there's a lot of skepticism because they haven't applied it. But we developed a new instrument, which will be a handheld instrument where we can scan environmental areas as well as food in pallets. You know, most of our food is delivered in pallets. So if you can scan a pallet very quickly, you can determine whether or not that food inside the pallet, tomatoes, lettuce, whatever it is, bananas, you can see the colonies and then swab them for DNA on site. Then you can have a better chance of detecting it for human safety. Over.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. You know, I just want people to know, you got, like you were saying, about 25 labs running to detect this kind of stuff coming into our country, primarily stuff coming out of the country, coming into the country. Is that right? Both.
Domestic
Okay.
and international production of food, yes.
Okay.
You're right.
So, and that's amazing. Now, the other thing that we had talked about is the microbiome and the bacteria that's in the microbiome, and it comes out in your poop. It's half of your actual poop is bacteria. The actual physical weight of the poop is actually bacteria, 50% approximately. Now, remember we talked about being able to take spectroscopy and be able to take a picture basically of the poop, and when you use CMOS, it picks up every single frequency of light, and every single frequency of light is, well, every single bacteria and every single living thing and every single molecule and every single thing that there is has a signature which is in light. All right, so it's going to be a certain frequency. Now, how many different bacteria? I picked up something probably on the high end. They talk about 75,000 different enzymes. Now, what do you think about that? How would you put the number of bacteria or enzymes that exist? Do you have any idea?
Well, Roger, your primary assumption is absolutely correct. Our human digestive system is a gigantic number of mixture of these different bacterial organisms living and processing the food that humans consume. Now, what the factory processes that are involved in breaking down that food and then distributing those nutrients out to the human body through the bloodstream is absolutely astounding. It's beyond our current science. Now, your question about assigning a certain number for each and every human is beyond our current capability. The only thing that we can do is identify negative. We cannot identify positive. And your primary assumption is that if we could assign a total number and identify a total number, then we could distinguish between good and bad for humans. And that is a project which you and I have discussed for many years, and I completely endorse. Whatever we do find, we're going to find that our human biology is beyond our current computational and understanding of the complexity of a human biology system. In fact, any creature that's living on the earth, because it's a balance of those organisms living and surviving and dying and replicating, and our human survival. Over.
Yeah, it really is truly incredible, the complexity of the most basic single-celled organism of bacteria. I know you know all these things, but I just want to say these things. Bacteria create ribosomes. And ribosomes are little tiny balls. They're just a little tiny ball. And you can have up to 1 million or more ribosomes in every single cell in the human body. In every single cell, you can have 1 million or more of these little tiny balls. And when these little tiny balls break open, they create a very exotic enzyme. And that enzyme is the key to breaking things apart or putting things back together. So the enzyme comes out of the bacteria as a ribosome, and then when it's used in the body, it does this chemistry. And you can die literally within hours if you had damaged almost all your bacteria. And that's what acute radiation syndrome is. When you get irradiated, it can kill your own cells, but before it kills your cells, it kills the bacteria. The bacteria are single cell, and they don't have the same protective coating as your own cells. So when you get irradiated, instantly it kills your bacteria. A lot of it. It depends on how heavy the radiation is. Now, if you get an extreme amount of instant flash of radiation, you don't fall over dead. In about an hour or so, you start throwing up. You have diarrhea. You all kinds of gut issues and bloating, and because your bacteria is not working anymore, it's dead. And it's not creating those enzymes. It uses enzymes like just scads of them. And and you can also be healed within a number of hours by taking the correct bacteria and actually by taking the correct enzymes. It takes the bacteria, I was looking it up, it takes the bacteria about 3 days or so to start creating enough correct enzymes to bring you back from being sick. So 3 days is about what it takes for your body to recoup itself if you have the good bacteria and it's making the good stuff. So these people that are working around CERN and all that stuff, they have to wear badges because they're killing their bacteria in their body, and they can only last so long. And the badge keeps picking up these radiation things and says, hey, you're getting more and more radiation. Well, they don't even know what it does to them. I don't know what they think, why the guy is going to he's got to stop because he's going to get cancer or something. The cancer is caused because the bacteria is not there in the membranes, in that fluid-filled highway, to stop the invaders. So the invaders come right through there because you've killed your own good bacteria. That's what cancer is an invasion through those layers where the bacteria really exists, and the enzymes are the gatekeepers of everything that can come in and everything can go out. Enzyme is involved 100% in every single chemical reaction that happens in your body, 100%. Not a thing happens without an enzyme. And enzymes work and can do millions of years of chemical breakdown within 1 second. And the way they do it is working with the half-lives of all of the different chemistry that's in your body. The enzyme just goes, done. Whereas normally it would say to break this molecule into this particular nucleus, it's going to take 2,000 years, and then another 1,000 to break it down to the next one, another 1,000 for that, and 5,000 for this. Well, this thing does it, and it does it instantly, and it doesn't even get used up. It's click chemistry, click, 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 and it breaks down and kills all these invaders, or breaks down the food you're eating so that you can use it. If you have bad poop, you got an issue with your body. You got to have the right bacteria, and that's what's causing. I believe it's causing the autism. I see no other reason for this problem. And the autism is extreme. I mean, nervous signals, nerves, myelin sheathing, all of that stuff is extremely needs extreme amounts of enzymes. And the kids, when they're young, they don't have any enzymes in them yet because they have no bacteria yet to build up those enzymes. And especially if a lot of these mothers, they're giving them antibiotics when they're in the middle of giving childbirth, and they're giving them antibiotics during, and the kid needs those biotics in them to create the enzymes. You follow what I'm getting at, right? Am I making sense, or am I just getting too confusing?
No, it's absolutely astounding, your observations, as well as, but not limited to, your discovery of these creatures that live in the barrier between the human skin that are immediately dispatched out to invasions of the human biology. Can you describe that and give me the definition of your assignation of a name for those creatures?
Well, it's in the lymph system. Every single organ in your body and every single cell even is covered by a membrane. And the membrane is there to separate the contents of whatever that thing is, your tendon, your muscle, your liver, your heart, your lung. Every single one of them has a membrane. And it separates the outside from the inside. Now, if something penetrates that membrane, not supposed to get through there, it can get into your good tissue in there and cause cancer or all kinds of disease issues, tumors and all kinds of things. So you have to keep that out, and the only thing that can keep it out is these the membrane with these lymph fluids in there. The lymph is the key. The lymph fluids are fluids that are in your body that run through this fluid-filled highway that is the coating. It's part of the fascia, and the fascia coats every organ, every muscle, everything. And even your skin could be considered fascia. And just in that area there is where all this lymph fluid flows. And somehow it's intelligent. I haven't figured out how, but I can see it when I look at tissues being attacked by venom. I can see that they're going over there specifically to remove that venom. You can see it in the microscope, but my microscope is the size of the world. Because I can see that happening in real time. And that lymph fluid has to have all of those enzymes. And once you kill your bacteria, you're done. And the only way for that bacteria to start growing again is to repopulate the bacteria that was in there that was making those enzymes. And that's where that fecal matter transplant comes in. And if you take a kid that's healthy, say 14, 15, 16 years old, it doesn't have any, they poop correct, they have a nice sausage poop, they're healthy, they're strong, they're active, they run, they jump, they do all those, that kid has good bacteria. He's not suffering from any kind of issues. He doesn't have literally any, even pimples, even peanut allergies. They're finding all of those things. If you give somebody a fecal matter transplant, it changes. It stops it, and it brings him back to what a healthy person would be like. Even peanut butter allergies. It's unbelievable what that does. And the only reason they found out about that is because of people that have the C. difficile infections have to take a fecal matter transplant most of the time, because that's the only thing that will fix that, is putting in a new bacteria. Instead, they want to give you drugs. And you have to fail the drugs 3 times before they'll even let you have the poop. And as soon as you have the poop, you're dead. You're done. You're good. It's all done. And you can't use it for anything else. And they've been trying to get this approved, and for some reason now, this is where Trump and Kennedy should be saying, well, what is wrong with this? We have to isolate these bacteria and figure out what the bacteria are, and then we can ferment them in vats. We don't have to use poop, but we need to know what the bacteria is, and the only place that bacteria comes from is the gut of people. So somehow you got to figure out which is the one, and that's where those colored pictures would come in. You take a picture of the poop and send it off through AI, and you'd have all of the different colors of the spectrum, and even way down in the areas where you don't even see the spectrum. And it would feed that information into AI, and it would say, wow, we got way too much of this yellow and not enough of the green and too much of the blue, and we're missing this one altogether, this other one. And it would come back and say, here's what a normal one looks like, and here's what yours looks like. You're going to need some more of the yellow, you're going to need less of the blue, you're going to need this. And literally, we should be able to get those bacteria and be able to just have the guy take the bacteria. And once it incorporates itself into your body, you're done. You don't have to do anything to it anymore. It lives all by itself. It takes care of itself, and it produces the products you need to kill your invaders and to break down your foods and all of that stuff. And it creates energy in the mitochondria. Life is made of enzymes. It really is. That's the key to life, is enzymes, and they can make them.
Well, Roger, your approach, I believe, incorporates 2 avenues of study. First is the injection of living remnants, because those have been used and expelled from human bodies, and that means re-ingesting them into otherwise sick individuals. But your other avenue, which I find fascinating, is the injection of created organisms, particularly the products from the Garden of Life, and that really helps people with autistic or even the other geriatric conditions which they can't remember, and they've lost their memory through the blood-brain barrier. Can you review that? The Garden of Life application?
Well, that's what we use. Well, that's what we use with John Jr. And that's how I started with Marguerite O'Reilly. And she's got that. You're part of this whole package. She's got that working with the government over there in the United Kingdom. They're trying to see if they can get funding and this and that. But I had a friend who was going to die. They told me, you're going to die. There's nothing we can do for you. It's all over. And what happened is he had a tick bite, and he got Lyme disease, and they treated him excessively with antibiotics, and it killed all the good bacteria in his body. It doesn't just kill the bad bacteria. So it killed all the bacteria basically in his body. His body shut down. And they call that a cytokine storm, where your body is trying to attack everything with whatever it can, and so it ends up attacking its own self, and you just die. And that's from the C. difficile primarily. Well, this was 12 years ago, somewhere around there. And he tells me, he says, and he's a healthy-looking guy, good-looking, handsome guy. They were going to do a video on my research, and he came up with a photographer and so forth, a video guy. And in the meantime, we were talking, and I'm looking at him thinking, this guy's healthy, he's good looking, he's going to present my stuff on TV or wherever they were going to do it. It never did happen. But anyway, he started talking about how he was going to die, and I said, "You're going to die? What are you talking about?" And he says, "Yeah, I had the tick bite, and they told me there was absolutely nothing they could do, and to make preparations." He said, "I went home, and he had a friend who apparently was involved in this Garden of Life probiotics. Now, these are soil-based probiotics, and not totally, but there is soil-based probiotics in there. So coming from dirt, and it must be something special, because in 2 weeks he said he was out jogging. He felt perfect. He's never been sick since, and that was, he was going to die. They said there's nothing we can do, and that's doctors saying you go home, you're going to die. And 2 weeks later, after just taking these probiotics, they kicked in, and boom, he's done. He's back, and he's still fine today. So I told Marguerite, I said, you got to get John. John Jr. was severe in a autistic, I mean, as far off the edge as you could possibly get. Never spoke, stemming, humming, buzzing, screaming, kicking, biting, all that stuff. They were going to put him in a locked ward. So she reached out to me because I must have mentioned something. Anyway, the first thing I said to her, I said, "How does he poop?" And she said, "Oh, all the kids with autism have their diarrhea and all. It's a terrible mess all the time." And I said, "That's what's causing the problem." She said, "Oh, no. All the autism kids have it." And I said, "I know, because that's what's causing the autism, I think." And she said, "Well, I don't know about that." And I said, "Well, if we can get him to poop right, let's see what happens." And I said, "The only thing, he's not digesting. He's obviously not digesting correctly." So I said, "Let's give him to try this stuff that my friend took," and he wouldn't take the pills. The kids, these autistic kids, they'll only eat exactly certain things. Like some of them only eat potato chips. That's the only thing they'll eat. And some of them, anyway, he wouldn't take the pills. And he was a real fussy in all that respect. Anyway, he liked ice cream. So they make a powdered probiotic, the Garden of Life Primal Defense. And it's in a powder form. So she was taking it and putting it in the ice cream, and he was eating it. And a couple of weeks later, he started talking. And then he started getting better, and he's significantly better. And
amazing.
I know, it was just absolutely incredible. And so now she tells everybody that she knows, because it's a community. They get in these communities where, that's a serious impact on your life. That's not just a little thing that happens. It covers the whole family. It's a real disaster, really, and not just for the kid, it's for the whole family. And anyway, she starts telling all her friends, they start doing it. And I was talking we had a Zoom meeting going on with a bunch of them, and she said she took her kid 30 days later back to the pediatrician, and they go in there, they can't talk. And the kids never talk. The pediatrician or whatever they call him now, just says, "Well, he looks all right. He's just not going to get any better. There's nothing you can do." Well, this time the kid walks in, and the pediatrician says, "Well, how's it going?" She says, "Well, pretty good." so he says, "She can talk now." And he said, the doctor says, "Oh, come on." He says, "Yeah." He says, "All right, tell me your ABCs." The kid says, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right down the line. So he says, "Can you count?" And the kid goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and up to 99. And the doctor just about fell off on the floor. He said, "I can't believe this. I never seen anything like it." And this was only 30 days between the time he saw him and then the time the kid is doing all these things. And these kids, they know what's going on. That's the key. That's the killer. Because John Jr., she used to take him as much as she could to places, to the zoo and all this stuff. And I'm talking to Marguerite about John and how's he doing, and he's doing good. We went to the zoo and da-da-da. And she said she took him to the zoo when he was fully fledged autistic, 100% non-responsive, just like he wasn't even there. She takes him to the zoo again. Now he's walking around, talking to people, looking at things. He says, "Mom, remember the last time we were here? The zoo, the giraffe was over somewhere else." And she says, "You remember that?" And he says, oh, yeah, I remember that. He remembers all this stuff. Now, I don't know how deep of a memory that is, but boy, that sounds pretty harsh to me, to be locked in a body. You just can't get to your nerves. You can't get to your muscles. You can't get to your mouth. You can't make contact with the outside world. But you're in there somewhere. You know what I mean? That was a shocker to me. What do you think?
Yes, it's absolutely astounding.
Because they don't know this.
Discovered, Roger.
That
relationship between the gut and human operation. In other words, those autistic children be on the far end of the spectrum of non-operation. But you brought them back to life.
It seems like the crazy thing is, if you look up, well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do it right here. I got my computer. I'm just going to put in autism and FMT, fecal microbiota transplant in children. All right, this is the national health. Fecal transplant for autism. Recent study, Arizona State looked at long-term effects microbiota fecal transplant in 18 children with autism. And I want to sell you something right off the bat here. Let's see. And gastrointestinal problems. So they looked at the fecal transplant, 18 children with autism, gastrointestinal problems. Paper is longer-term follow-up to the initial 2017 study, where participants had microbiota transplant therapy to see if their symptoms had changed 2 years later. Well, then they go on, what is fecal transplant? Well, then it goes, is it safe? And they say, yes, it's very safe. And they say, how do fecal transplant work? And it gets a little involved, but it says we can only recommend treatments that have enough studies showing evidence the treatments are safe and they work, and which people will work for. Researchers can and should try to repeat and broaden this study to find out if it meets this standard. Until then, fecal transplant are experimental. But it changed. They all had a good response.
Absolutely astounding.
Yeah.
And your discoveries of the application, along with Marguerite, I believe have been poo-pooed way too long. They've been they've actually been against your research when you have results.
I know.
And results are the actual basis of science.
I know. And here's another one from the National Library of Medicine. And this just goes back to 2023. It says fecal transplant may be helpful in the treatment of autism spectrum, as rebalancing the gut microbiome is shown to potentially improve behavioral symptoms in children with autism. And it goes on, the results. This is their study. Introduction, autism spectrum, commonly highly hereditable. It's not hereditable. It's because you're in the same environment and you didn't get the bacteria from your parents' guts, and you're eating the same foods. The other thing is, you know that I found the biology of the Earth. There's areas on this Earth that are highly covered in who knows what. They're actually biology in areas of the Earth that could be the source of these issues. And it could be Northern Ireland has a problem because they have such a high, their autism rate, I think now, is 1 in 22. So every kid, 20 out of 22 kids, one of them is going to have autism. And that's pretty serious. And it's growing, it's not going down. And they're fighting back against this. And all we need to do is to find out before and after they get these MMR shots, because those are live viruses. Those attack your body. If you have no bacteria in your body to fight back against that, no enzymes to fight back, that stuff will start to take over. Now, it may not develop to give you the actual mumps and rubella and all that stuff. It might just twist something another way where you're going to lose some of your myelin sheathing or something like that. It's hard to pin these things down, but if you don't have I think they should just start to do a broad spectrum study of fecal matter transplants from people that want. I would certainly like to try one, because I can feel things happening to me that I believe are related to my bacteria losing its ability to create the enzymes in the sufficient quantities that they always had when I was younger. And that's just going to happen. That's as you age, they stop.
Would you ascribe that to aging?
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, is a disease set over?
There's a disease where you've been attacked by something, and that will kill your enzyme, your bacteria, and your enzyme production. That's the disease type. The aging type is just standard. That's just everybody has the same deal. As you get older, your bacteria, it gets older too, because you don't just always replace that bacteria. Once you establish the bacteria in your body, it's supposed to stay there primarily for your lifetime. You're going to get invaded by other bacteria and by other who knows what, funguses and viruses and whatever it is. But your body, its own set of bacteria, should be able to keep you healthy. At a certain point in your life, they start to go bad, or I don't know if they go bad or they just get weak or they die off or whatever happens. But remember we talked about, and I think this was your idea actually, was to freeze the fecal matter from when you're healthy in your young years, when you feel you're most healthy, get it in solid, freeze it solid for your older life, and save that. Do you remember us talking about that?
I do. We have that as a scientific presumption that your specific human body, given to you, body enzymes, when you are younger and healthy, can be preserved and then re-injected. That is an amazing procedure which you're proposing.
Yeah, I don't see any reason you shouldn't be able to do it.
Yes.
Now that brings up another really important point, and like you were talking about these cold rooms and how bacteria will not proliferate in cold conditions, except for this you talk about listeria, whatever it is, will survive in these cold conditions.
Yes. E. coli and salmonella primarily will not replicate. They may survive, but they will not survive to the point of replicating, in other words, growing.
All right, it's absolutely fabulous information right there, my friend, because that's where enzymes and bacteria are extremely subject to temperature. So your bacteria and the enzymes in your body work perfectly at 98.6 degrees. That's their sweet zone. But if you get them too hot, which is your inflammation in your body, it will kill them. And if you get them too cold, if you get them...
Actually, the exact theory of pasteurization, Louis Pasteur, said if you take a sample, heat it up to X temperature, it will kill the bacteria, and it will sanitize and sterilize. And that's what we do.
You're breaking up a little bit. You still there? Andy, you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Now you were breaking up. Yeah, they're very subject to temperature. So that's the key. You can kill them. Your body will try to kill them by temperature change, by inflammation. So if you slow down the inflammation, sometimes that may not be a good thing. You know what I mean? They're giving them Tylenol to slow down the inflammation, to reduce the heat, and maybe that's not good. You don't know. You just don't know anymore. The things that we've always accepted, just you can twist them around and find out that they're just not working the way we thought they were working. Now, here's the key. Now, let me just finish this, because this is the most important thing right now. The temperature change that's happening on the Earth, we think is no big deal. Well, to enzymes, it's huge. It's huge. In the Arctic regions, these bacteria are starting to reactivate and create the enzymes. The enzymes are breaking down the biomatter that's underneath these frozen things, and they're exploding. And this is just insane. I'm going to click on my screen here. I got this in today from, where was it? Here it is. I don't know if you remember me talking about these craters that were up in Russia. And I actually talked to the Russians about them back in 2014. They started showing up.
You called them digestive escapes.
Yes,
or gases.
Yeah,
digestive gases. Go ahead.
Exactly. That's what I told. I actually talked to the Russians. A Japanese guy got a hold of me who was doing sinkholes, and he saw my thing about sinkholes. And he says, "I think you got this right." And the Russians wanted to talk to him. So he says, "I'll have them call you." And I says, "Yeah, sure." So I talked to the guy and I said, "You're looking at something. There's nothing you can do about it. The Earth is warming up, and as it warms up, this digestion is going to happen. And as the digestion happens, it creates methane gases. The methane gases are copiously exploding." And I'm looking right now because they just put this out today. Origins of Siberia's mysterious craters may lie deeper than we thought. Now, I haven't read it yet, but this goes back. I was the guy talking to them about this, and I explained it to the guy. I said, they're digesting, and that's where you're getting all these methane gases, because this exploded outwards. This didn't sink down. It wasn't a sinkhole. It was an explosion. And then, yeah, see right here. It says, more than a decade after the mysterious holes were first discovered in the permafrost of West Siberia, scientists are still putting forward new theories, from gas explosions to meteor impacts, on how they are formed. I told them exactly how they're formed, and I was right. So it says they were first discovered in the Yamal Peninsula in Siberia in 2014. That's when I talked to the guy, 2014. And then right after I talked to him, about a week later, 2 weeks later, 13 more holes showed up right around the big one. And they were all because the methane had depressurized, and these were sinkholes. And it's all from the enzymes breaking down the matter that's in there, which is biology. The whole world is made out of nothing but biology. I don't care what anybody says. There is nobody can show me that this earth is not made out of anything other than biology. Rocks are not just something that happened for no reason. Rocks. No. Everything here came from biology, and in space too. And you know that, Andy. We talked about that earlier. And comets, asteroid Bennu, they have in their hands the samples. And I know you've seen it, right? You saw that. I did.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a heart. It's from a heart. And it is a heart. You can see it's a heart. And Psyche's a heart too. And they grabbed the samples, they brought them back to Earth from Bennu, over $1 billion to go out there, grab samples, come back. They've got sarcomeres, they've got membranes, they have all the chemistry that's in the amino acids, uracil, DNA, RNA, 16,000 organic compounds, 16 of the 20 amino acids, and it's heart sarcomeres. You can see them. There's no question, and they just can't get their head around this. It's 2 years it's been there. They've had it back here. We're going to study this for the next 10 years.
Fascinating.
And they absolutely refuse to engage with a conversation with me, because there's no way you can help but see this. I've posted this dozens of times, and my channel is really, really shut down now, almost no hits now, because I think AI or something must check what you're talking about, and if you're not saying what they want you to say, they put you in the algorithm of whack job. Don't show this, that type of thing. That's all I can
I've never heard of that, but it sounds applicable.
Well, AI now, there's no question AI is checking everything that's being said. I go on now, I can go on AI and ask them questions about the things that I say about other people and accusations I'm making, and they have all that. They have it all they say, yeah, Roger Spur said this, Roger Spur said this, Roger Spur discovered the mud fossils, and they know all that stuff. This AI is, but it's okay, but it's also automated indoctrination, because they also say my study. Well, you know what? I'll do it right now. I'll just call it up right this instant.
Which one do you use, by the way?
Well, I use a bunch of them, but this one here is Google. But I'm what was I going to do now?
It's called Gemini, isn't it?
I know it's just this AI from Google, but here, one second. Roger Spur, Mudfossil discovery. Now let's see what they have to say about this. All right. It did not match any of them. No. They got that. Well, they got me on academia and so forth, and then they got me on Confused University. They a whole bunch of stuff about me that I'm an idiot. Human DNA and giant mud fossils with Roger Spur. It's not showing up here. The one that hold on. Are mud fossils real? Let's see what they say about this. Yes, mud fossils are a real thing, but the term can be misleading. It refers to fossils preserved in sedimentary rock that was once mud. The term mud fossil isn't a specific classification, but rather it describes how many ancient organisms like the mud dragon dinosaur became encased in mud and were preserved when the mud hardened in rock over millions of years. So they're coming on to this.
You're getting close, because your theory was after the flood, it was automatic. It was a very short time period.
Yes.
6,000 years, rather than millions.
Or it wasn't even that long ago. It was the Great Flood. Hold on a second. Funny looking rocks are not fossils. If you look it up on chat, it'll talk to you about it, and they'll say, yes, Roger Spur discovered mud fossils, but they're not scientifically accepted, and he doesn't have any evidence. I have the DNA, I have the CAT scans, I have the specimens, I have all that stuff, and they refuse to examine it. They just totally refuse. So that's what the automated indoctrination is. But I have all this evidence. Nobody can dispute it. I'm even like holding up right now one of that giant hair follicle. It's 2 inches wide. I have the DNA tested hands and fingers and lungs and all kinds of stuff. So that's the problem. But anyway, I guess we've run it out pretty much. What do you think, buddy?
Roger, keep going, and I believe you will be a significant contributor to observational science and theoretical postulation. What does that mean? That means that your thoughts will spur what we call conventional science. That means a study, a finding, a published paper, and then 10 other papers based on that one paper. And I believe your contributions will not be recognized in your lifetime. Fully recognized for their value. Over.
Well, all I really want to do is discuss it. In the 10, 12 years that I've been doing this really deeply, I have never had one single question from academia, from anybody in academia, not a single question. All I've had was, you're an idiot, you're a tinfoil hat guy, you're an embarrassment to science. I mean, it goes on and on and on, the things I've heard about me. But not a single question. How did this happen? To explain to me? No, they just won't even discuss it because they know there's nobody this incompetent to see the evidence that I have and dismiss it. But I do have them saying that, and they're all, everyone that does dismiss it basically is a PhD. Even though you're a triple PhD, my friend, I forgive you for that. No, Andy's no. Wait a second. Let me qualify that, because Andy is a hard PhD. He's not a theoretical PhD. He works with actual physical things that he can determine the outcome of what he does. Is he right or wrong? That's what a PhD should be. PhD, I call him perfectly happy deluded.
So the issue is it's application based. So my application is looking for bad bacteria that will harm humans, make them sick or kill them. Your theoretical observational science is wide open. You're going from what I call nano environments, the light and the dark, all the way up to our universal observation of planets and celestial bodies. Amazing.
Yeah, well, I've shown there's no question whatsoever. Bennu is a heart, and that's in space. And they went out and they picked up a piece of that. They have it here. There is no question whatsoever. We can identify that, and they have identified it. And they just can't. They won't talk about it because it's just too much for them to accept. And Comet 67P is a hip joint. No question about that whatsoever. You saw that gassing off. The astronauts in space, when they come in from a spacewalk, they say their suits smell like steak because there's nothing out there that isn't cooking. It gets close enough to the sun, it cooks. It doesn't get dust blowing off, it cooks. And what's coming out of there, they did a landing on the Philae lander on Comet 67P in 2014, and I studied that just as well as they did. And they sent back all of the chemistry and everything about it, and it was all biological, and it is a hip joint. They landed on there. No question about it.
I have another call. I have to get on. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I'll talk to you later, buddy. You've been most helpful. I love you, friend.
You keep going, buddy.
Okay, talk care. All right, bye-bye.
You bet. Bye now.
All right, that was Andy. Great guy. Absolutely brilliant. And willing to engage. That's the key. He's willing to engage. Triple PhD. He knows what he's doing, my friends. All right, I love you all. Bye.